On a typical summer day, Wolf Hollow to an outsider would look like absolute total anarchy and chaos. But it's very organized chaos, I can assure you.
They had to seal in a box on the breeze.
Yeah, definitely. Semitendinosus, semimembranosus.
That way we can weigh him while he's still in this cage. It's
Probably about 15 cc's.
Oh, have you tried? Yeah, wait a minute. No, seriously. Hiya, kid. Are you hungry?
Somebody get this seal off my...
You can make some noise. Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
Little tiny. Miss me much. We're kind of glad you two.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead and try to bite me. That's all right. Yes, okay.
We get about 15 harbor seals per season, per puppying season. Throughout the winter, of course, some adults come in that have been shot or injured in some way. The reason why most seals are picked up is that they are found without their mother, and they are obviously less than 2 weeks old.
We get a weight to find out what our chances are of saving it. If they are below 15 pounds, their chances of survival are much slimmer than if they're 15 pounds and above. They're supposed to be born at 22 pounds and gain weight from there.
14 what? 14.
Most of these animals have been abandoned for quite a few days, and they are therefore dehydrated and starved. Well, this is going to be the most disgusting thing that ever happened to you.
They start out getting fluids, electrolyte solution, and that happens for a couple days, maybe only 1 day depending on their health. And then we start with fish.
That white bucket of...
Come on over here. Come over here.
Oh, boy. We've released 9 harbor seals, successfully raised and released 9 harbor seals, and 1 adult harbor seal that was brought in shot.
Good boy. Okay, go for spins. Get out of here. Get out of here. Go wash your mouth off.
This is Judy Carter. She's a rehabber whose special interest is birds, and she's going to show you a very special animal named Harold.
Are these wild animals? Yes, these are wild animals.
This is Harold. How many of you guys have ever seen an owl before? You know what's really special about Harold? Take a real good look at his face. You see his eyes? Harold can't see you. You can see him, but he can't see you because he's blind. He was born blind. So we'll have him all of his life.
When we have an animal that comes in that turns out to be non-releasable, for example, Harold, the blind long-eared owl, we try to, given their consent, given that they're happy in a captive environment, we try to use those to educate the kids primarily, and also adults, on how we affect wildlife.
Some people say, why not let nature take its course? What they're forgetting is that I would say between 75 and 90% of the animals we receive at the Wildlife Center have been orphaned or injured due to human interference. They have been shot, trapped, hit by cars. Okay, say goodbye to Harold. Bye.
We got Pogo, the river otter, in April. She was 15 days old. Her eyes were still closed because her mother had been chased out from underneath somebody's house. We realized after having her, once her eyes were open, that she was going to identify with us. She wouldn't know she was an otter. So we put out the word to various rehab places that we were looking for another otter to pair her up with, so she would at least learn otter behavior. And this, the animal Albert, male, was brought in by the game department in Tacoma, and they had found him beside his dead mother. Pogo is now an otter. She wasn't an otter before, but she's an otter now. All right, so oh, yeah? Okay, you might be able to
Test that, Jess, it's pretty warm.
He doesn't even want to open his mouth for it. Oh, okay. I remember this. Discovery, yeah. With fawns, we give them a bottle to simulate the mother's nipple. We have to introduce all of the varieties of foods that they would eat on the island, because an animal that doesn't know what it's supposed to eat won't recognize it as food.
Why don't you stay in?
You are a deer. With fawns as well as all animals, after you've cuddled them, after you've nurtured them, once they're weaned, you have to start pushing them away. And you have to teach them that humans are not necessarily good, so you have to do a complete reversal process.
The deer in the Solomon Islands are smaller and possibly very different species or subspecies. We began to be seeing 4 years ago an incredible range and breadth of deformities and malformations in them. To see 1 or 2 malformations would be not unusual, but to see the kinds and numbers that we are seeing are truly astounding.
There you go. Can I get you to come over here so I can check your leg?
Fagin and Oliver are the same age. They were brought into us almost simultaneously. Fagin is multiply deformed. His legs were twisted almost completely around when he was brought into us. He's really the only living example that we have in captivity of the problems that are here in the Solomon Islands. We realized very quickly that it was one of 2 basic possibilities: a genetic problem or a teratogen, something that causes fetal deformities. We need to discover what is the problem. There are people who are watching and observing the deer, trying to count them, but we do need to do a complete census and formal census.
You're going to have to show me the best place at the pond to release the ducks, and I want to take some crumble so that they have something to eat. Some children found the nest, which had been destroyed by dogs, and these 2 young mallards were the only babies left. Some people think releasing 1 or 2 swallows back into the wild every year, or 3 or 4 raccoons, is not going to make a great deal of difference in the total population of that species. There are so many rehabilitators now releasing every year that I believe it does make a difference. They look great.
Great, they are taking to it like they've always been.
Like a duck to water,
so to speak.
Why don't you go ahead and weigh Natasha? I'm really interested in what she weighs now. Why don't you put Cops back in the cage and then maybe ours. George, you need to record what Quasimodo ate today. And I'll have to tell you what's going on. As the Wildlife Center grew, I realized I was going to have to close my veterinary practice because I couldn't do both jobs at once. More animals needed to be taken care of, and it's a niche that needs to be filled, and it's something that gives me a lot of personal satisfaction. If we can save an animal and get it back into the wild, I don't think there's a bigger high than that. 17 and a half. That's good. What's on the I tried to say yeah, all right. In the back now? That time? Yeah. Okay, let's see. It's 10 o'clock. What else needs to be done? It's at 9 and you got, probably about 15 cc. Let's call that 10 o'clock feeding. But you can maybe do it 11, 12, say 1 and 2, and then maybe give her a break, and then maybe do 4 and then 6.